place in Jesus' name. We plead the blood of Jesus over this service today and over each and every one that is in here today, Lord God, over every auxiliary in the name of Jesus. We thank you, Heavenly Father, today, Lord God, that your blood still has power, Lord God, that there's power in the blood today, Lord God, in the name of Jesus. We thank you that we are washed by the blood today. And as we come, you said in your word to enter into your gatehouse with thanksgiving and come into your courts with praise. So we come and thank you, Heavenly Father, for watching over us all down through the week. We thank you, Heavenly Father, for touching us this morning with your love, awakening us and giving us the heart and mind to come out into your house of prayer, to your house of praise, to your house of worship, one more time, Lord God. We thank you, Lord. Hallelujah. We say thank you, Lord. We can't thank you enough, Lord God. We can't thank you enough, Lord. As we come to praise you, Lord God, the psalmist said, 7 times a day will I praise you. We come to praise you, Lord God. Hallelujah, Lord God. We come to praise you, Lord. We come to give you the praise, Lord God. We come to give you praise today, Lord. We're saying, have your way today. Have your way in this place. Have your way in our hearts today, Lord God. Have your way. You be seen. Not us, Lord God, but you be seen in the name of Jesus. Hallelujah. Hallelujah, Lord God. We give glory and honor to you today, Lord God, because it belongs to you. The praise belongs to you. The glory belongs to you. The honor belongs to you, Lord God. If it wasn't for you, Lord, where would we be? If it wasn't for you, where would we be? You are the Lord of Lords. You are the King of Kings. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Thank you, Lord. Hallelujah. Before we go any further, I want everybody in here to stand up and just give God a praise shout as loud as you can. Everybody that can stand, that have 2 legs, 2 pair of feet, and nothing is wrong with you, and you can't stand. Let's go up together. Let's give God a praise shout. Hallelujah! I needed that. Yes, Lord. Hallelujah. Thank you, Lord. Oh, hallelujah. I'm going to read a scripture this morning, and it's coming from Psalms 125. That they that trust in the Lord shall be as Mount Zion, which cannot be removed, but abideth forever. As the mountains are round about Jerusalem, so to the Lord is round about his people, from henceforth even forever. So it says, as the mountains surround Jerusalem, so is God's love surrounding us. So we are surrounded. He got us surrounded. He has us locked in with him, that the enemy cannot get to us. Hallelujah. We are surrounded by his love today. Hallelujah. Thank you, Lord. Praise the Lord. I'm Prophetess Bobby. I'm your pulpit conductor for today. And I'd just like to say good morning to everybody. And at this time, we're going to get ready to do our vision and our mission. Okay. Our vision is to be the best training and evangelistic ministry in the world. Our mission, center of attraction, for the purpose of glorifying the name of Jesus through worship, Christian discipline, and the proclaiming of the gospel. What kind of place is it? A progressive and prosperous place, a place of worship to our God.
And apostolic and prophetic place, a place of
Community and international outreach, a place exploding in growth. And what did John say in John 12:32? And if I be lifted up from the earth, will draw all men unto me. So what are we going to do in this place today? Lift it up, lift it up, lift Jesus up. Okay, so at this time we're going to get ready for our praise team to come. So let's get ready to join in with our praise team.
Hallelujah.
Let's praise God because of what He has done for us, what He's going to do for us, and what He will do for us. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
His name is Jesus.
wake up. He said, let your word be exalted above all the earth. So Lord, let it be exalted, Lord, above all the earth, above everything that concerns you, above every problem that you could ever think of, every problem that you think you have. God, let your word be exalted above all the earth. Come on, let's exalt the Lord. Hallelujah. Let's exalt the Lord. Exalted means like cheerleading. Let's cheerlead God today. Hallelujah, Lord. I exalt you, Lord God. I exalt you above everything, Lord God. I exalt you above my children, Lord God. I exalt you above my sons today, Lord God. I exalt you above my finances today, Lord. I exalt you above my home today, Lord. I exalt you, Lord God. I exalt you, Lord. Hallelujah, Lord God. You're the only one that matters, Lord. You're the only one that matters. Nobody else matters but you, Lord. We exalt you today, Lord God. Hallelujah, Lord. We exalt you today, Lord God. Hallelujah. Yes, Lord. God is the one to be exalted. I don't know how you may be feeling today. I don't know what's wrong with your body or what kind of feeling you have today. But we need, and here, we need to praise God. We come to give him the praise above everything. Over everything. It says that we are more than conquerors. God is the great I am. He is the greatest of all. There's no one else as great as God. He is the one. Yes, Lord God. We exalt you today, Lord. We give you all the praise today, Lord. It's not about us, Lord God, but it's about you, Lord God. There's no problem too hard for God to solve. it says, come to me, all you that are laden and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So he said, if you are heavy laden today, come to him and cast all your cares upon him, for he cares for you. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Thank you, praise team. So whatever we are going through today, we need to cast it upon God, cast it upon Jesus, because he knows how to handle every problem, every situation. He said that there is nothing too hard for him to do. He can do all things but fail. Okay. So at this time, we're going to have the operation of the gifts. If anybody heard anything this morning, ministers, you know what you're supposed to be doing. But if there's anyone else heard anything today in this service, you can write it down and you can pass it up here to the pulpit so it can be judged. Okay? But ministers, if you heard anything this morning, you can come at this time and say what you heard so that the body can be edified. So we have no one today. I was praising God. We praised God. This was before any of you all that's sitting out there now was here. One Sunday, we praised God so hard to when we got done, so many people were slain out on the floor. And when we got up, we couldn't even tell each other what had happened. But I praised God that day so hard. And during that same week, I found out about my son that was in this truck. He drives semi. And it was a flood. He was in Houston, Texas. And there was a flood. And the flood was up over the truck where he couldn't even get the doors open to get out. People was all around him, floating out their cars and everything. And they was under that water for 3 whole days. I didn't know what I was praising God for. But when I found out what had happened and what had gone on with my son, I couldn't get him. Because when I heard about the storm, I could not get him. But because they said due to the storm that all the lines were down. So when he did finally, he called my oldest daughter when he got a chance to and said to tell Mama I'm all right, let y'all know that I'm all right. And he told us what had happened. And so this is what I heard the Lord say to me after that. That's why you was praising me so hard. And because I was praising him so hard, God spared my son's life. Now, I was praising him here in Saginaw, but my praise reached out over there in Houston, Texas, and saved my son's life. So we need to praise God every day. You don't have to know the reason. Just praise him anyhow. Just praise him because he said praise him. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. So at this time, we're going to get ready for our announcements. Sister Mary Ann is coming with our announcements.
Good morning. Good morning. How's everyone? These are our announcements for today. Please pray for Pastors James and James and Leona Glenn, Mother Baker, the Hamptons, Mr. Long, Mr. Moulton, Shar, Robert Reed, Richard, Bobby Wesley, Walter, the President, Jennifer, Joyce, Betty, Keenan's father, Shawnette, and Cora. A special fast and prayer is every Wednesday. Good Friday service is at 12 noon at New Christ Community Church. Let's be prepared for church anniversary, which is May 3rd and 5th. There will be no supernatural service tonight. And tell someone about Jesus and invite them to church. We will have a little short meeting, just a little short meeting after service today for everyone. Also, candy baskets. Resurrection Sunday is on the 17th, no, the 20th, the 21st. So please get your candy ready. Sister Shalanda and myself has purchased quite a few baskets. And we're ready to fill them up. So bring your candy at Bible study and next Sunday so we can get them done. Okay? Thank you. I'm sorry, I forgot one thing. This is first Sunday. So if there's any birthdays or anniversaries, can you raise your hand, please? Woo, there go what? No wonder she. All right, anniversary. All right, but we got an anniversary. We got birthday here. I'm not singing happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy anniversary to you. Happy anniversary to you. Happy anniversary to you. Happy anniversary to you. And many more. Hallelujah. I have an announcement. Easter is on the Sunday after next. I need some ladies to come to me, please, after service if you have time. I need some things for you to do. And if you have any children that you would like to do a speech, let me know so I can give them their speeches today. If not today, then next Sunday. Okay? Please. Okay, thank you. And now we're getting ready for our tithes and offerings. Okay, now let's do this again. It's offering time.
Yes.
Praise the Lord. Okay. If you need an envelope, you can raise your hand and ushers will assist you. And also, okay, we also have a point of sales available. And could you please include your zip code on your envelope if you are using the card, please. If you're using your card. Okay, so could you stand, please? We're going to get ready to do our offering affirmation. As we give our tithes and offering, we are believing you, Lord. Raises and bonuses, benefits, sales and commissions, estates and inheritance, rebates and returns, checks in the mail, healing and divine help, gifts and surprises, finding money, bills paid off, settlements, debts demolished, royalties received, scholarships and grants, contracts, money management, 100-fold return according to your word in Jesus' name. You can be led by the ushers.
Rejoice in the Lord always, and again I say, rejoice in the Lord always, and again I say.
Pressed down, shaken together, and run on out, which your man give to you in your bosom. So we lift it up, Lord God. We thank you, Heavenly Father, for it being a means, Heavenly Father, for the work of the ministry in Jesus' name. We thank you and we praise you and we give you glory. Amen. So if the nursery is open for at this time for the children. And at this time, we're going to get ready for the word. Right, Brother Leon here is coming with the word today. So point your hand towards him as he comes. Father, in Jesus' name, we lift up Brother Leon to you right now. We thank you, Heavenly Father, for the word that you have put in his heart, Lord God, so that the word, Heavenly Father, will help us this week, down through the week, Lord God, that we will receive your word, Lord God, that we will hear it, Lord God, in the name of Jesus, and that we will not only be a hearer, but we will be a doer of your word in the name of Jesus. We bless him now in Jesus' name. And after he's done, we're taking up a speaker's offering from him today.
Praise the Lord, everybody. God is truly good. His isn't he not?
Yes.
And he has a work for his people to do. Lord, I thank you. I thank you, Lord, for using me this morning, Lord, to reach out your word to your peoples. Lord, we just bless your name. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation in my heart be acceptable in your sight. O Lord, my strength and my redeemer. Amen. I'm going to talk to you a little bit this morning about the Holy Ghost. The Holy Spirit, the Holy Ghost. Okay?
Amen.
There's some scriptures we're going to go to. The first scripture we're going to go to is found in 1 Corinthians, the 12th chapter, and the 13th verse. Amen? Amen. 1 Corinthians 13 and 12 and 3. I'm sorry. 12 and 3. Now the word of the Lord came to the apostle about pressing. All right. Now if we're going to press, we're going to have something inside of us to press. Because we are being resisted, people. I'm here to tell you now, we are being resisted. But the power that God gave us in his word, his spirit that dwells within us, must be magnified upon the land. 1 Corinthians 12 and 13. 12 and 3. Wherefore, this is Paul talking to the peoples, I give you to understand that no man speaking by the Spirit of God, okay? Now we in spiritual warfare, right? So there's two spirits going against us. There's the Spirit of God and the spirit of the enemy, right? Okay? So by the Spirit of God called Jesus accursed. A curse is what it means. And that no man can say that Jesus is Lord but by the Holy Ghost. Amen. The question today, who is your Lord? Is Jesus your Lord? Or is Jesus not your Lord? If Jesus is your Lord, we have been endowed with the power that Jesus has given us. Look at Luke 10. Luke 10 and 19. The apostle said, you got 30 minutes, and 30 minutes I'm going to use. And then, I mean, we have to know. We have to know these things. If we're going to do any good for this world, we must know. Wisdom is powerful, but knowledge is king. Remember, we must be informed. Okay, now right here, go to 17. Okay, now, Jesus had sent the, you can read up further if you want, had sent the disciples out 2 by 2s in the 17th verse of Luke 10, and they are returning. Okay? So, let's read it. And the 70 returned again with joy. All right? Saying, Lord, even the devils are subject unto us through thy name. Okay? Now the 18th verse says, and he said to them, I beheld Satan as lightning fall from heaven. Okay? Now Jesus is telling the disciples that Satan is on the earth. Alright? Because this verse references to the casting out of Satan when he invaded heaven from the earth long before Adam. So that should tell us something right there. that in the beginning, God was there, because he beheld Satan falling on the earth. So Satan, look at it now, Satan was on this earth when he deceived Adam and Eve. So Jesus is telling them, hey, he was here long before that, okay? But the 19th verse is what we want to get. Hey, look, I give unto you power. Power. I'm talking about power to tread on serpents and scorpions. Okay? Now, the word power, it says the right delegated authority. This power Jesus is giving the disciples is some delegated authority. Everybody know, I know there's a lot of service people in here and people that work, have jobs, have somebody over them. And I know there's some school people in here who have teachers that are in authority over them. All right? So if the sergeant tells the private to move, he moves. If the teacher tells the student to shut up and be quiet, they shut up and be quiet. All right? And your boss say, well, I need you to say maybe another 20 minutes because this report got to get out and all that. So you do that. Authority. The same authority we see happening here, Jesus has given us that authority in here. So we can speak that thing. Devil, you get your hands off my child right now. In the name of Jesus, I command you to leave this house. This is a holy house, and it will be holy. My neighborhood is sanctified. You have no right here, devil. In the name of Jesus, we speak that name. That's what we do. That's the kind of power Jesus has given us. All right? Now, and over all the power of the enemy. All the power. Now, the devil can't do nothing to us unless we allow him to do it. Because he has no power. We just read Jesus gives us all the power. So we don't succumb to what the enemy says because we are in authority. Right? So where our feet tread, that's our ground to take back. What the enemy stole, we can reclaim. Through Jesus. That's why we want to know who is our Lord. If Jesus is our Lord, we have the power and authority to say these things, and they will come to pass. But if Jesus is not our Lord, we need the Holy Ghost. Because it's the Holy Ghost, the teacher, the comforter, the one who brings back to your memory, the Spirit of truth. These are the synonyms for the Holy Ghost. Not synonyms, but characteristics of the Holy Ghost, right? So, what are we going to do? Huh? Are we going to have Jesus as our Lord? Amen. Or are we just going to sit and not have having the authority but not using the authority? It's individual choice. But I'm going to tell you, what the word of the Lord came forth January said, we're going to press. If we don't have nothing in us to press, we ain't going to press. You know, pressing, like breaking through those hard places, you can get a 10-pound sledgehammer and just bust and bust and bust and bust and bust and bust. Or you can get a jackhammer. Now, what does that mean? That means that jackhammer will bust through more efficiently than you using your effort and strength trying to break through. That's the kind of power we got, that jackhammer, that hammering power. We can break through. But Jesus, give us the power to do it. Now when I said tread over serpents and scorpions, What does that mean? That means to tread upon means to have absolute mastery over. So, when we tread on the enemy's head, we got master over his head. When we tread on the situation that's coming against us by pleading the blood of Jesus, we mastered that. Just like a master's degree. We mastered that. That's what tread means. Tread don't mean just gingerly walking through the woods and all of this. Tread means with some authority to take it back and keep him down. Keep his head down under him. The enemy is under our feet. Do you understand this? The enemy is under our feet. We are in authority. We have the power. No. Okay. Well, now when we're talking about the Holy Spirit, let's look at Acts, the 8th chapter and the 15th verse. Acts 8. I'm way over here. Acts 8 and 15. Right. Okay. Right. Now, when you read up a little bit, you can read everybody knows the story of Simon the sorcerer who was bewitching the people, and the people, he was bewitching them so long that he had them believing that he could do what he said he could do. And we also know that when Philip came there and they began to preach, Philip began to preach to the Samaritans the word of God. This caught Simon's attention, and Simon wanted to buy the Holy Spirit. We know this, okay? You can read it up further if you want to. But right now, we're looking at verse number 15. And it says, well, let's go to 14. Now, when the apostles were at Jerusalem, heard that Samaria had received the word of God, they sent unto them Peter and John. Okay? Peter and John were apostles. Philip evangelized. See, knowing who you are in God will give you what to do. Philip's gift was not apostolic. It was evangelistic. That's why the spirits of God that each and one of us have today works together. The apostle is over everybody. He's the one that sets things in order. And he's prophetic, and he's evangelistic, he's a pastor. He flows in the fivefold ministry. Some of us step out of our ministry and, whoa, we don't know what to do. But if we stay with God, what God has given us to give to his people for his good, we'll flow. We will. And he will be glorified on the earth. Okay, so the 15th verse says, who when they all come down, prayed for them that they might receive the Holy Ghost. Okay, so further up, we saw where the Samaritan people received Christ, right? Okay, now, the 15th verse talks about receiving the Holy Ghost, right? So, the Holy Spirit here, when they prayed for him, they received the Holy Ghost, must refer to the Spirit baptism, okay? There's two baptisms, right? There's baptism by water, and then there's a spiritual baptism, right? Okay? And the spiritual gifts of the Spirit for service. Not salvation, because these people was already saved from sin. They were justified. They were born again. They were healed. They were baptized in water. And they had great joy in Christ. All right? So here we are, sitting right now, saved, full of, have the joy of the Lord. the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of power. They didn't have it to them. That's why Peter and John went there. They was already saved. People sitting in the church right now, already saved, with no baptism of the Holy Spirit. God wants us to be empowered to have power. That's the only way. It's through the Holy Spirit. Amen. Praise the Lord. So that's why Peter and John went there. It wasn't to save them. It was to let them know, be baptized by the Spirit of Christ. Amen. All right. Now, when we look at Acts 8. Now let's go to Acts 1. Very, 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 very familiar. Acts 1. Acts 1 and verse number 12. Okay. Well, we can back that up a little bit. Let's go to 1 and 4. Acts 1 and 4. Okay. This is very, very, very vital for believers to understand. We must be on one accord with each other. Right. Because if there's just a little crack, the enemy is just coming in and just cause havoc everywhere. And before you know it, not filled with God's power, you're going to believe in that stuff. What do they say? Misery loves company. So you miserable, here you are, walking around as the enemy, seeking who you can devour because your feelings if you got hurt. Well, I'm supposed to do that. Why they doing that? But see, no, that's the carnal mind. The carnal mind is an enemy to God. Amen. All right. Now, number 4. Now, they have already seen Jesus ascend. And they already seen Jesus come walk the earth for 40 days. All right? Now, this section says, command to wait for the Holy Spirit baptism before starting their ministry. So if we're going to minister, we have something to minister about, right? Now listen, it's not about minister this, it's about ministry this. It ain't about us. Praise the Lord. I guess I wasn't talking loud enough. But, okay, now I can use the mic, okay? Praise God. You know what I'm saying? It is good to know Jesus, ain't it? I mean, because, hey, how many of us know like I know? If it had not been for the Lord on my side, where would I be? Commands, okay? Now, when Jesus gives you some direction, or when the apostle gives you direction, because the apostle and the prophets, they're not giving it because they want to. They're giving it because God gives them to give it to you. See, we have to catch this now. You know, because if we don't catch it, we're not going to see the whole vision. We're not going to complete what God wants us to complete. That's why they're training and evangelistic and the best in the world. Okay, and then assembled together with them, Jesus commanded them that they should not depart from Jerusalem, the church, but wait for the promise of the Father, which he said, ye have heard of me. All these disciples, they walked with Jesus 3 years, 3.5 years, and they, you can look at people that's walking with Jesus right now. Oh, I know the man. Yeah, okay. what is your fruit doing? Are you bearing good fruit? Is your fruit bearing to remain? So what are you out there ministering? Are you out there ministering Jesus, or are you out there ministering what you think you should be ministering? See, we are in a battle, people, I'm telling you. And the enemy is not weak, but we have the power and authority because we have from Jesus a free gift. And it lives inside, and he lives inside of us. So what we want to do is blow it up. Because we know all through the scriptures, where there's Jesus, the enemy got to go. Because he can't stay. Okay, so if the enemy is just yanking on you, revisiting, something wrong. Now, like I said here about those Samaritans. Oh yeah, they were saved and they was praising God. They had joy, but they had no power. We need the power. Delegated authority from the Holy Spirit that only Jesus can give us. He goes on to say in the 5th verse, for John truly baptized you with water, but you shall be baptized with the Holy Ghost not many days hence. So Jesus promised us a lot of things while in his ministry. And he promised us that we would be baptized with the Holy Ghost not many days hence. Anybody want to be baptized with the Holy Ghost? The first thing you got to do is get your heart right. Your heart is right. God will come in and be your helper. He will be your comforter. He will give you the spirit of truth. We talked a little bit about that this morning. How people, when in Sunday school, when you give it to people, but God will give you the discernment on what to give and when to give. God will tell you right away, don't waste your time with them. Just like Jesus told the disciples, just shake the dust off your feet. Because I'm going to tell you, there is a lot of people in this world that want to know about Jesus. And it's up to us, the Christians, filled with the Holy Ghost, to give the good news. We have to give the message. Because if we don't get a message, they ain't going to get a message.
That's right.
That's it.
Look at the 8th verse. Well, the 6th verse, the disciples haven't been empowered, so their mind is all over everywhere. You know, when we gonna come and restore the time, the kingdom? Jesus, we got to keep focused now. It ain't for you to know what time or the season which the Father has put in your own power. That ain't for you to know. What you need to know is verse number 8. But ye shall receive power. After that, the Holy Ghost has come up on you. Okay, so Jesus had a plan the whole time. He told them, just wait. Don't go into Jerusalem yet. You got to have some power. And now I'm going to give you the power, and you shall be witnesses unto me, both in Jerusalem and in Judea and in Samaria and into the uttermost parts of the earth. So as we ministering with the Holy Spirit, we will finish the Great Commission that Jesus told us to do. Go into the world and preach the gospel. When we preach the gospel, we're preaching about Jesus, and Jesus has been indwelled in us so that when we release his name, people will know. Hey, I can change. You know, hey, maybe I do have it wrong. I want to know some more about Jesus. Well, come on to church. See, this is the message that we want to get to people. That there is change. If you're stuck in sin, there is change. Okay? Now, I have one more to talk about, and that is we have to live holy. Okay? Because the Holy Spirit will not dwell in an unclean temple. We know this. All right? Now, receiving the Holy Spirit, there are 12 things that is beneficial to us. It sets us free from sin. Now, these are all found in Romans 8 and 26. Okay? Go there for me. It sets us free from sin, cancels the death penalty. It fulfills righteousness. He fulfills righteousness, and he indwells believers. If the Holy Spirit is in you, living in you, you ain't gonna want to do them things that you used to do, because you found a new source. Take the plug out the power source is power. Power just shuts off, just like that. Plug into the receptacle, power comes on. We have a new power now, and it's in Jesus. And the Holy Spirit gives life, and the Holy Spirit quickens the mortal body. Ooh, isn't that something? Just quickens. I mean, because the enemy is just malignant is what it is. But with the power that Christ gives us, we can just put that thing down just like that. And you know what? He won't come against us no more, because we have found a new power source. We're not on our own power anymore. We are on the free power that Jesus has given us. Okay? And it mortifies sinful members. Okay? And he also leads children of God. He adopts into God's family, and he bears witness of his Son, and he helps our infirmities. And he also makes intercession for the saints. Likewise, the Spirit who helped our infirmities, for we know not what we should pray for as we ought, but the Spirit himself make intercession for us with groanings which cannot be uttered. We know we're hurting, but we don't know how to get to God. So we just let it go off ourselves. Welcome, Holy Spirit, into my life. Oh, Lord. Yes, Jesus. Oh, yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Oh, help me, Lord. Help me, Jesus. Help me, Lord. So we started growing. And we know the moment. Oh, Jesus. You are the living God. And I thank you. Lord, fix the situation. Fix it for me, Jesus. For you are the way maker. You are the one, Lord. Hallelujah. The miracle worker. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. So this is what we do. We get before God. We can do this at church. We can get before him in our home. And we can bring the presence. Isn't that what they said this morning when the woman was going to her friend's house, and they was going to her friend's house because she was ministering and evangelizing. Going to her friend's house, she was reading her Bible before she got there, so they could pray, so they could play Bible trivia. When the presence of God is around, there is peace. Because he said that. My peace I give you, my peace I leave with you. So we have to understand now. We have to understand how the Holy Spirit himself works in us. How the Holy Spirit builds us up. How the Holy Spirit He's a very present person in our time of trouble. All right? And as we know, with the Holy Spirit, we can do any and everything that God has commanded us to do. Because God gave us some promises, didn't He? He said that the thoughts of you are not evil, but of good, and to bring you to an expected end. So if we're going to get to that expected end, we need the Holy Spirit. God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. Amen? Amen. Does anybody want to receive Jesus as their personal Savior as we get ready for communion? Does anybody, would you all stand, please? If you want to receive Jesus, just tell Him yes. The key part about receiving Jesus is we got to get out of ourselves. We must humble ourselves. Jesus was a perfect example of humility. He humbled himself even to the death, to his death. When we receive the power and delegated authority that Jesus has given us, we can accomplish the things that He has in store for us. So if you want, if you need prayer, one of the ministers, I'm sure, will pray for you. When you accept Jesus, there's a transformation that happens. That transformation can only be complete through the Word of God. I encourage you, get a Bible-believing church that preaches Jesus. And you will see that there's nothing Jesus can't do for you. Amen. So, with that said, we're going to do our communion. When you this will be the communion. The body of Jesus who took all the sins of the whole entire world to the cross so we don't have to bear them. We partake this. He said in His Word, do this in remembrance of me. The grape juice represents the wine, the blood that Jesus shed on His cross for our sins. Amen. Amen. We just follow the directions of the ushers and partake in the communion. Okay, Bob.
Okay, praise the Lord. You can be directed by the ushers, please. I'm going to read John 6, starting with verse 43. It says, Jesus therefore answered and said unto them, murmur not among yourselves. No man can come to me except the Father which has sent me draw him, and I will raise him up the last day. It is written in the prophets, and they shall be all taught of God, every man therefore that hath heard and hath learned of the Father coming unto me. Not that any man has seen the Father, save he which is of God, he has seen the Father. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that believeth on me hath everlasting life. For I am that bread of life. Your fathers did eat manna in the wilderness and are dead. This is the bread which cometh down from heaven, that a man may eat thereof and not die. I am the living bread which came down from heaven.
If any man eat of this bread, he shall live forever. And the bread that I will give is my flesh, which I will give for the life of the world. The Jews therefore strove among themselves, saying, How can this man give his flesh to eat? Then Jesus said unto them, Verily, verily, I say unto you, except you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, ye have no life in you. Whosoever eat my flesh and drink my blood hath eternal life, and I will raise him up at the last day. For my flesh is meat indeed, and my blood is drink indeed. He that eateth my flesh and drinketh my blood dwelleth in me, and I in him. As the living Father hath sent me, and I live by the Father, so he that eateth me, even he shall live by me. This is that bread which came down from heaven, not as your fathers did eat manna and are dead. He that eateth of this bread shall live forever. Starting at verse 53 again. It said, Then Jesus said unto them, Verily, verily, I say unto you, except ye eat the flesh of the Son of Man, and drink his blood, ye have no life in you. Whoso eateth my flesh and drinketh my blood hath eternal life, and I will raise him up at the last day. For my flesh is meat indeed, and my blood is drink indeed. He that eateth my flesh and drinketh my blood dwelleth in me, and I in him. As the living Father hath sent me, I live by the Father. So he that eateth me, even he shall live by me. Okay, at this time we're going to take up the offering. We should have done it before communion, but we're going to take up an offering for our brother Leon. So could you come? You can just come on your own. Father, we bless this offering in Jesus' name. We thank you, Heavenly Father, for this offering right now in Jesus' name, Lord God. We know, Heavenly Father, that it's being taken up on good ground, Heavenly Father. In the name of Jesus, we thank you and give you praise. Amen. Amen. At this time, we're going to be dismissed, but first, before I dismiss, I would just like to decree a couple of things over this church and over God's people today. In the name of Jesus, Father, in Jesus' name, I decree and I declare that no weapon that is formed against your people shall prosper. No weapon that is formed against our pastors shall prosper. I decree that you are the righteousness of God. I decree that every one of your needs are met. I decree today that no devil in hell can separate you from God's love. I decree that you will arise and go forth in the name of the Lord of hosts. I decree that the Spirit of the Lord God is upon you. I decree that God is on your side and nothing shall overtake you. I decree today that the favor of the Lord is upon you. I decree that you will tread over serpents, scorpions, and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing by any means shall hurt you. I decree today that God will perfect that which concerns you. And that I decree, as our pastor's been decreeing and saying, that the year of 2019 is your year. That you will accomplish what God said that you will for the year of 2019. Now could you stand, please? We're going to be dismissed. Start with number 6. Number 6. I got a new Bible, I'm sorry, so. Well, we'll just say the Lord watch. Oh, okay, here we go here. The Lord bless thee and keep thee. The Lord make his face shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. The Lord lift up his countenance upon thee and give thee peace. And they shall put my name upon the children of Israel, and I will bless them. You can go in peace. Remember to keep Jesus there, center of your attraction this week. And remember, Mary Ann needs to see us for a